Well, good Friday evening to you, everybody. Meteorologist Matt Wintz here. We've got obviously a major hurricane that we continue to talk about. Want to give you the latest update here as of Friday night and let you know some developments in terms of maybe a little bit of a track shift and what the impacts would be if that were to happen. So this is a live look right now at the high-res satellite that continues to show just a very well-organized system. We look for a very well-developed eye, which we've had. It's gone through a little re-intensification process over the last hour or so. You see a little breakdown of that eye, and then it kind of redeveloped again. But now what you're looking at here is Cuba. We've got Florida off to the north. These are the Bahamas. It was supposed to thread the needle, so to speak, in between the Bahamas and Cuba, with perhaps making a brief landfall in Cuba. But as of this last look here, over the last couple hours, it's taken a little bit more westerly track than some of these models were indicating, and that is bringing it ashore to Cuba. Now, it's expected to start that west to northwest jog that would eventually bring it into Florida, and I still think that's going to happen. But this storm is heading a little bit further west than I think some of those models were saying, so that's why we pay such attention to the cone of uncertainty, that big wide-scaled area, not the red line that models continue to show. So we'll give you the latest now. Still a major Category 4 hurricane. 155-mile-per-hour winds. Just for reference, when Andrew struck, winds were around 145. They had gusts to 160, 170 with Andrew, but we know the devastation that caused. So 155, that is no slack of a hurricane, even though it's a Category 4. I feel like a lot of people let their guard down. Not the case. Hurricane-force winds extending outward quite a ways, heading over Cuba now. So these are the latest computer models. We call these spaghetti plots because they look like a bunch of noodles, right? And these are basically all the models and where they think they're going. And you can see we've got pretty decent consensus on the western coast or central half of Florida now, but some of these models starting to shift it a little bit further off to the west, including this one. We call that the outlier, so we don't buy that. But again, as they continue to shift west, that would dramatically change kind of what this storm is going to bring to the state of Florida. So we'll talk more on that, but this is the official forecast, not by us, but by the Hurricane Center, which is out of Miami. You can see that track, including that turn to the north. And it's going to get pulled to the north because there's a little weakness, a little trough in the atmosphere, and low pressures like to travel towards that. So that's why it's making the turn. But notice we've got perhaps a Category 4 increasing back to a Category 5 hurricane as this makes landfall sometime Sunday morning. Why the increase? Well, hurricanes survive off of warm water, and we've got that right here. This is bath water sitting here just south of Florida between Cuba and the Bahamas. Water temperature sitting in the low 90s in spots. That is very, very warm, and so this storm expected perhaps to strengthen as it heads off to the north. When I talk about that cone of uncertainty, though, we tend to focus on this red line, much like here in Northeast Ohio, we focus on when we say 6 to 12 inches of lake effect snow, we all look at the 12, right? Well, this line is just the average of all the models. It could go out in the Gulf, or it could still hit off on the eastern coast of Florida. Now, things would change if this becomes a Gulf Coast storm system. All right, if it heads out over land, yeah, it'll die out and become a tropical storm as it heads up into Georgia. But if this stays out over open water, not only is it going to be more devastating for the western coast of Florida, to include Tampa, St. Pete, down towards Fort Myers, and even down towards Naples, Florida, but it could be a major hurricane when it heads out and eventually into the panhandle of Florida if that scenario plays out. But right now we're going to go with the Hurricane Center's track. Again, it's going to strengthen over the next 24 to 48 hours after it gets away from Cuba and then heads up the gut of Florida as it looks right now. Eventually goes into the Tennessee Valley. Doesn't look to be a big impact here locally in Ohio. We may see some showers, maybe some clouds, and some breezy conditions, but I'm really not even seeing any wind off of this. Going to be a major threat. One of the things, storm surge, that's all that wind that constantly brings that ocean water up and piles it up, essentially. That's what storm surge is, and we're talking anywhere from 15 to 20 feet possible near Naples, which is right about here. We've got areas just west of Miami, and you can see Key West there. Obviously, the Key is going to get battered by this. Tampa, with the geography, doesn't look to get battered too much, but again, if that track goes further off to the west, we're going to have problems in Tampa equally as well. So bottom line, this storm is huge. It takes up more than Florida. And the worst part of it's on the northeastern quadrant, and that may affect much of Florida, which would have devastating impacts area-wide. Rainfall, not a big issue. With Harvey, it was a big issue because Harvey just sat for days. Irma's going to move pretty quickly, so 5 to maybe 15 inches top rainfall. Sounds like a lot. Florida can handle a lot of that. It's really that storm surge that's going to be the big issue, and then it really weakens as it heads inland, as most hurricanes do. Expected to be perhaps extra tropical as it heads up in the Tennessee Valley by Tuesday. And can see light rainfall amounts across the Ohio Valley. Again, not an issue here locally. Another map that we have, and some power of technology can bring us a power outage index. There's a lot of science that goes into this. This is detecting areas that obviously have a really high risk of being without power. You would think all of Florida, but not the case. Here you see Miami down to about to the Tampa area. We're going to have some major power outages. But if you're in the Panhandle right now, not saying you shouldn't evacuate, but again, lesser effects up there as it looks right now. So we'll give you the synopsis here, things you need to know with Irma here as of your Friday evening update. Landfall expected still late Saturday. I think it's going to be more so early Sunday morning. And then eventually we're talking not just a wind threat, but a storm surge threat. And those are the major things. We didn't deal with that with Harvey. These catastrophic winds are really going to be an issue, especially close to that eye wall. And rain may impact Northeast Ohio as we go on into next week as it looks right now. So continue to follow us here at WKYC.com. We'll have updates, obviously, on Facebook Live. And I'll be tweeting about it all weekend. We've got it on Facebook and Instagram at Wintz Weather. Make it real easy for you. All right, everyone, stay safe. If you have friends down in Florida, please reach out to them. Make sure they have a plan in place. We'll have more updates here on WKYC.com.